Welcome back, everybody. It's the second episode of the 77 XR750 or 750 XR75. So what I've done so far is I'll just start in with what I've done since the last video. I broke down the wheel and tire on the front. Now I cleaned this up really well. I removed the bearings. We've got new bearings coming. I haven't finished polishing this. I'm going to try an old used electric toothbrush to get inside here and get it acceptable. I really hate to go in and, bead blast or wire wheel anything like this, because what I want is I want it to look original. As you can see, there's the bearings are out of there. And I cleaned up the surface of the brake area and actually cleaned up inside here. So, got the hub off. We're going to polish that. I've yet to polish this, but this is just cleaned and it looks really, really good. So, that's clean. And the long and grueling, time-consuming task of plating. I've got the spokes here. They're plated. Here's the top of the fork caps. And this is the nut for the top of the triple tree. This is not plated yet. I've got the engine bolts. And what else do I have? Oh, these are the washers for the shocks. And what's lurking in here? Oh, rear axle. So, like I said, it just takes forever to plate. I talked about this before. These are just done in the regular zinc plating with the blue chromate dip to give them that brand new look. And then this is my custom plating, and I'm going to try and bring it down here where you can really see it. And I don't know if you can see a little green hue, a little bit of a kind of a green aged look. The rest of this bike, the bolts were all silver, but this, when it came out, had just a little bit of that aged zinc plating look. So I do the custom plating and I try and match as best I can to what it looks like when it came off. I want it looking like it's never been pulled apart. That's the idea. So there's that. And I have ordered just a ton of parts. All the parts pretty much are on order except for the big things like the exhaust and the seat, which I'm just going to continue to shop around. But look at the flywheel that I was able to score. This thing is like new. The one that came off was just unusable. And the points on this, I don't even think I'm going to have to change the points out. I'll just gap them. But this is really a score for me. I looked and looked and looked and found this on eBay, and I was real happy. So that and a whole bunch of other parts. I was able to score a fuel tank also off of eBay, and it's got dents. This was the best of the affordable tanks. There were some in there that were just crazy. I probably should just go in the business of painting tanks and putting them on eBay, because when they fill the dents and paint them and put a sticker on them, oh my gosh, the price is just out of this world. And this is full of vinegar. So I've got the vinegar process started. This probably take probably a week or two, which is going to be okay because I'm going to order today. I'm going to order the paint, the Tahiti red. Also, the cylinder and the head have been sent off. And the head, I did not know whether or not they were going to be able to work with it. But when it comes back, I'll show you. Fast Heads, if it comes back and it's back together, I got to hand it to them. This is just a, well, there's the old points and stator. I'm also really struggling with this, and I know I'm going to be able to get this to work. I know these ears are still attached, so it's just a matter of getting off this peg, finding a right and a left peg, the springs, one pin, and just cleaning this up and getting it acceptable, which is going to require some bending, because I know these peg locations are not correct. And from looking at pictures of, I want to say, perfect step holder videos and pictures, I can see mine's a little bent. So I'm going to have to straighten it out a little bit, but we should be able to get this done. So the next step is getting the front tire, front rim, hub, and spokes all laced up. And before I can do that, I've just got to finish polishing this. So let's get on to that. What I did is I am comparing these three products here. I just tried this because I use it for my carburetor float seats, and it polishes up the brass in there and makes them seat again. Makes that rubber seat, well, rubber plunger, whatever in the float, the float. Anyhow, so I tried the glass top, the Adams, and the Mothers. And here is the original. This is what I started with, which is not bad. That's just cleaning it. With a good cleaner. I use the Purple Power. So when we go and we look, this is the cooktop. It didn't do a bad job. The only thing I can see is there's like a little bit of difference in plating, or maybe that's corrosion that's still in there. Haven't quite rubbed it out. So there is the glass cooktop, and then here is the Adams, and I used both the number 1 and the number 2, and it's hard to get down into that groove. Come on, camera. Down in that groove is tough. So let's just stay on these center grooves here. Then the Meguiar's, which is only a one process deal. Now the idea, for me anyway, is not so much shine as what it would look like if it were in a parts box. And this doesn't look too bad. It got a little bit more of a dull look to it, and then instantly you get into the shine, which is okay. And I think even more of a shine with the Meguiar's. So it's just your own taste. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. So I went ahead and went with the Meguiar's. There it is before, and there it is after. Before, after. And there it is done. And looking good for a dirt bike. So now it's lacing. And there it is, all laced up. Now I can't true it. I can't true it till I get the bearings. So I could put it on my little truing machine. But those look really nice, the gold little, I know there's a name for those. And it looks really shiny and pretty. We've done all sorts of plating. Got everything plated, and we're going to move on to the rear wheel. Got the tire off, and we've got a real rusty situation here, and that's not going to be easy, so we're just going to have to see what we can salvage and possibly buy a few new spokes. I ended up having to order a set of spokes for the rear because these are not going to come out. But I thought you'd like a before and after. So here's a before. Here's an after. Before. After. And the bearings came in for the front and the rear, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble this front hub. Got the, and I know this isn't exactly for this, but it fits it fairly good. We're getting it in there. And I might have to use a socket to get the rest of it. Oh, you hear that? Did you hear that? Bam! That's the sound you hear when it's all the way in. And I looked inside here to make sure that it's pressed against the seat there. So now don't forget this. Try and get that lined up as much as you can. It makes it easier if it's going in fairly straight. Yeah, I'm going to probably end up using a socket because that's not going in. That's fairly straight. I'm sure it'll straighten out on its own. Let's just see. Yep. Now, that is as far as that's going to go in. So, this is useless at this point. We need a socket. And we got one here. Is it? Almost feels like it's too big. Let's go one size down. And I think I've got about the right size here. And I think there's still a little bit left to go there. Although I'm just using this little hammer. Yeah, there we go. I can hear that. And the little shaft inside is tight, so that's there. Now, little seal fits right on there. And we got it all trued. You know, from hop and from side to side. As much as you can a dirt bike rim. So we'll do the same to the rear when we get the spokes. Time to put on the little rubber ring, new tube, and tire. I cleaned up this front hub and I'm gonna leave it just like it is because it's in such good shape. The paint is in such good shape, and there's a number of reasons. One, I don't have to paint it, and two, I can match it. I can look at what I use because this is so clean and so original. I'll be able to compare it directly to what I normally use to spray the silver. So let's get these brakes on. This bolt and the wear indicator need to be plated, but I'm also going to clean the little felt seal that goes behind this right here in this valley, because you're only new once. I could probably order a new one of these, but let's see how clean I can get it. Okay, so I got it pretty clean, ready to go. For some reason, this cell phone does not want to take real super close-ups. Anyhow, I wanted to show you the difference in plating. A lot of times you can clean these nuts and bolts up. You take all the plating off of them with a wire wheel. But also, look at the difference in the shine and in the brilliance. You know, you could shine that up, put it back on, or you could replate it and make it look new. Sometimes Chico just blows me away. You know, he just does such a good job. I know he's sitting there saying, yeah, I do a great job. Well, look at what he got. The Tahitian red and the rear spokes. Right, Chico? So I don't know what to do first. Start on the frame or continue on with the wheels? I think we're going to continue on with the wheels. What do you think, Chico? Huh? What do you think? Rims? Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay, so we're going to continue on with the wheels and rims. Here's a before. And I wanted to just give you a really good before and after, because we don't need to go into the same thing I did on the front rim. And after. That's very nice. And another after video with tires and sprockets. Makes a big difference. Now the front spokes were replated in my plating setup, and the rear spokes I had to purchase because there's just no getting those out, the old ones. But it came out beautiful. So there's the wheels and tires all finished. Now, I lined the tank. And one thing I wanted to point out, you can see in there, it's nice and lined, it's beautiful. The blue that I purchased from Caswell, I thought it was a transparent blue. Now it is semi-transparent, but it was transparent on the first. I bought a setup for a motorcycle. It's in my other video on the 200X, but I bought a video. I bought a can that was kind of for a big motorcycle tank, and I cut it in half and did the ATC with it, the ATC 200X, and this 80 or 75 tank, and it worked out well. They don't say to do that. They say it's hard to get the ratio right as far as getting half of each can into a pot and mixing it. I didn't find that a problem. So, but what I did find is that the first time I did it, I took the top part of the blue can. There was a clear like epoxy, and then the hardener has got the blue color to it. And in that blue color, the top, I just didn't think to mix the can up. So mix your cans up of the colored, if you want blue instead of like a semi-transparent blue, which is what I've got in the 200X. You can see that it's got a blue hue to it, but it's not really blue, you know, like the seed. It should be that color. You can see down there. And that's only because I didn't mix up the can. So I just wanted to point that out. So mix up your cans on the Coswell tank sealer if it's colored, and you'll be much happier. Moving on to the tank. What I've got here is a used tank, and I've got a few dents in it. There's actually a dent right on top, you can see there. And there's a few others. There's one right there, you can see that. And this side is a little rough. It's actually dented in right here. So there's quite a bit of filling to do. I was going to just refer to my how to paint an ATC gas tank video, but I think I'm going to go through the process with this because it's got a little bit more filling than I would like, and so I'm going to do it with a little different process, and I'm just going to go through it kind of quick with you. So we'll start by grinding this down to metal. And here's what I use. I use some of these, you know, just whatever you got. I'm going to try these out. Anyhow, we're going to strip it down. There is some real funky paint on here, and it's almost oily. So it's going to take me a little longer to get this ground down, but you can see we're getting it down to metal. But wow, this is just kind of going to goo up this. It might be better to try a paint stripper, but we'll see. I'm getting there. After a lot of work, it's all off. It's all silver now. Got the filler in here, and before it completely set up, I got the cheese grater out and got the high spots off, so I'm going to be sanding that real soon. I don't like to let it set up. You know, overnight you're really in trouble. So I've got that, and this was another coat. It's still tacky, and that's ugly. That is ugly, I got to admit. But that's going to come down with the cheese grater, and I'm going to have to do at least 2 or 3 fills here. So we're going to just keep working. So I'm getting it covered with just thin coats of etching primer, self-etching primer. I've got all the body filler pretty much sanded out, but it's time to do a guide coat with some high build primer to see where I'm at. It's to that stage. So I'm going to put on maybe 1 more coat of this etching primer, and then 2 or 3 coats. I'm going to build it up of the high build primer. And here's what I use. I'm using that up is really what I'm doing. And then I'm going to move on to this, which is what my paint shop told me to go to. This has gotten out of hand price-wise. So we're going to go ahead and use the rest of this up on this project. Here it is with the high build primer. Or no, excuse me. This is just the self-etching. And you can see there's a little dent here. So things start to show up. You can see the difference in texture of the body filler, but that line looks really good. And this side is looking really good. So I'm pretty jazzed. There's a small dent here. You'd be amazed what the high build primer is going to cover. There's a couple little dents here. You can see down the line there the different texture. So the high build primer is going to blend all this in. I'll probably have to do a little bit of spot putty, but what a difference. So let's get some high build primer on it. It took me most of yesterday to get this into primer and a guide coat. But as you can see, this is going to be pretty much done, but you can see a little dent right there. So what I do, I can't remember whether I used 220 or 320, but a towel, water, and I found the need for only 2 blocks. This is a very rigid block, and this one can be bent. So let's see what we can find out sanding off this guide coat. Now, up to this point, all I have used is 220 with the hard block. So what I'm trying to do here is establish where I've got to fill, where I still need to fill. And you can see how good that guide coat gives you the idea. This is all good. This is all good. There's a few pits here. Now I took it down, I'd say 75%. All of this can come out with sanding, but in a way I've got to get this off, because if I don't get it off and then I reapply new primer when I fill these holes and do another 3 or 4 real heavy coats of primer to block it out again, these will start popping up, and I'll think in my head, I'm thinking I still got to get down, I still got to sand, and it's really from the old ones. So I've got to get all the black off in the areas that really makes a difference. But you can see this area here, like I said, I'm down 75%. So the next step is to see if I can get all this out. If I can get all of it out, then it's good. It's perfect. And I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to get it all out except for maybe like these little pinholes. And that's a real question, because you could lay on the high build primer and that will probably all come out. But I'm going to do the additional sanding here and see what I can get out and what I can't. And then I'm going to have to probably fill here. And I know I'm going to have to. So that's a new dent that popped up that I didn't catch. And this is all really good. And I thought I had a dent in there, and it probably came out with the high build primer. The high build primer will bring out, it will fill 100 sins, but it won't do these deep pinholes. But you can see that's where we filled before, and this is where we filled before. There was a nice dent in here. And then this whole area was wavy and low. It's beautiful. All right, it's all sanded. All the black is off. And you can see that I circled the areas that I'm going to need to do a little bit of spotting on. And there they are, filled. And this, I hope, is ready for final primer. I'm going to hit it with just a little bit of self-etching on these little spots, and then hit it with the primer. And then block it down one more time, and it should be good. And I think this is going to be wet sand away. Just think everything's out of it. Just looks flat and beautiful. So while I let this cure up, I'm going to start on the front forks. And these are black. No one painted them black. All the 77s I've seen are all black. And there's some gouging. But all in all, there's no pitting around where the seals run. So it's a matter of draining them and disassembling them. So I drained it, put the bolt back in, pull the dust cap off, and use snap ring pullers here. And there's a snap ring, and underneath that is a washer. And there's the seal. Now, I'm going to see if this... I don't believe this seal is going to come off because it does not show a screw down in here in the breakdown online. But there's definitely a screw in here, and I'm almost positive that is your keeper. So I'll work on that, see if that's going to need to come out. I'm rebuilding an XR75, and I have noticed that there really isn't a video on doing the fork seals or disassembling the front fork. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the video of an XR75 front fork. All right, so I found how this comes apart. So there is a screw down in here, but it doesn't need to come out. That screw is for like draining, or I'm not exactly sure what you would call it, but it's not necessary. So here's how the seal comes out. Pull this down and spring load it, and then just let it go. And there we go. Now this has got, it came out this way. The shorter rungs here on the spring that are tighter go to the bottom. And so we will just clean this up and replace the fork seal and put it back together. So when you take the bottom screw out of here, which comes out relatively easy, and I can see it's got a sealing washer, copper sealing washer here, which they don't show. So I'm just going to put it back in with that washer all cleaned up. This almost looks like a little bit of sealer, a little bit of like Yama Bond. So I'll put a little of that on there too. So we'll clean this up. This is what this screws into. When this goes down in here, this goes in, and it screws into this piece right here. So that's the fork all broke down. So I'll put it back together, and I'll show you how I do that. But it's going to be just right at the seal. I'm not going to go back through it. It's going to all be put back together the same way I took it apart. Now is the time that I change to the soft, wiggly block. Now I'm blocking with 400, but you can see the little black dots in here and here. And you can see that using the hard block, I got down to metal in a few places. And then a couple places kind of into the, I'd say the self-etching primer there. Down here, it doesn't really matter that much. I probably wouldn't even cover that up. but I want to get it smooth, shiny. So with the soft block, I'm going to get in here and just work on this little spots where there are still black spots from the guide coat. And in this crack, you don't necessarily need to get it all out. I got most of it out here, and I'll get in here by hand because all the paint kind of collects in a crack like this, and it'll fill those gaps. It'll fill those little rough areas there. I'll probably get in there and get a little more, but you can see how I'm getting close here, so I don't necessarily need to. I'll get this top a little more. So I'll get this almost pure gray. I got it. I can feel pretty confident this is going to come out really beautiful. Got a little area here that I might just touch a little primer, but all the rest of the stuff where it shows a little sanding down, I'm good with. That's just color. I'm going to probably see some of that stuff in the first coat of base, but not in the second or third coat. If I even get to a third coat, I would assume that this red is going to cover really well. So there it is. That's what you want it to look like. Now that the tank's nearly done, it's time to get onto the frame. Because it's red and the tank's the same color, you really have to paint it all at the same time. And as you can see, there's a lot of flaking from tires and rocks, chain. I think you can see underneath here where the chain ran across here. And I just washed this up out in the wash bay. And so it is ready to start to sand. And what you do is or at least what I do, is I sand it like you see here. I've taken any of the little pits and imperfections out that I can, feathered them down, and I started with 220, and I went to 400, then 600. And I'm just going to do a little bit of each just to show you. So there's the 220. And I just try to get a feather started, you know, with this 220. I don't really want to embed those scratches in too far. Get a little metal showing like here. And you can see how that's feathered. And then do all the little pinholes and areas. And you can kind of see where you're getting down to metal. So I'll do this to the entire swing arm. And there it is with the coarse 320. Actually, it's 220, excuse me. So now I'm going to take and do the 400. And that's after the 400. It's getting a little smoother. At this point, we're just taking the scratches out from the 220. Now on to the 600. So now I've got to decide if I'm done with the 600, so it's ready. And I'll go over what I'm going to kind of seal it with. But anyhow, I'm going to have to decide whether I'm keeping these original stickers, which I am leaning towards, but I have to find out if they are available aftermarket. I've got it all taped off. The last thing I need to do is I need to weld on the steering stop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to experiment. I've got self-etching weld through gray primer. That sounds kind of crazy, but what it says is that it is compatible with most top coats. So I'm going to give it a try right underneath where no one's going to see if it has orange peel or something like that. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use this. This is a green, and it also says that it ensures a smooth top coat, so it doesn't really, warn against top coating like this. SEM, it says it's not recommended to put top coat over it, so you'd have to prime with this and then prime again with just a regular primer that you can top coat over. So let's look over the parts that we were concerned about. There's a lot of metal showing here, and that green primer said 24 hours to cure, but I put it on so thin and there's just no way it was going to take 24 hours, and they said it does vary. But one thing that did happen is the first primer I used, which was the welding primer from Eastwood, it started to lift. It started lifting right away. You can see there's a little area here that I brushed off with my finger, and up here it started to lift the old paint. So that's the only area I did with that particular primer. Everything else, all this down here, it's all smooth, no lifting. It's shiny actually. For a base coat, it's actually got some shine to it. And the tank, it's also got a little shine to it. And I think that when I get the clear on it, it's really going to be flat. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know if you can see just a little bit of a little ring there where it went through to metal, but the clear is going to fill that. I think this is going to be absolutely flawless. And the swing arm, it was pretty ugly looking when it was all sanded, but now she's pretty. So it's time for clear. And here's the clear I'm using, which I've used before. And I used it on the 200X. It came out beautiful. So let's mix it up. Here's one coat of primer. Primer of clear, excuse me. So we've got one more going on, and I'm having a little bit more of a hard time finding that little area. I think you can see it right there, but barely so. The tank's going to get 3 coats, I believe, just so I've got plenty to do a block sand. And there's the swing arm. I mean, the swing arm's practically good to go, but I'm going to give it another coat, just so I don't find a dry spot somewhere. I'm a little picky on my paint jobs. We're back up top here now, out of the spray booth. And so let's take a careful look at this. Now remember, I used that primer that was for welding, and I just used it in this area, and that lifting did show through. But all the other primer, all the other places where that primer is just beautiful. I mean, look at that. And I didn't let it set for 24 hours, but then again, I didn't put, you know, hundreds of mils on it, you know. And it's just probably 12 hours old. And if you remember, there was a little deep round hole where I had burnt through, and there were some scratches here that were a little bit deep for me. Now I can see a little scratching in there, and also there's a little couple of nits. There's a nit there. There's a nit there and there. There's also, because I'm still getting used to this, see that run? But that's no problem. This is base coat, clear coat. It's like, I don't know which is better. There's a nice run right here. I don't know what's better. Just lay it on and forget it. Just don't even worry about the runs, so that you get it on so thick that you just, I mean, not so thick, but thick, so that you can sand just virtually anything out of it. This, this frame just came out just absolutely gorgeous. There's really, you don't color sand a frame. Now, I taped this sticker off because I wanted it to look original. So I actually taped off right around this little curve, this little corner that had been peeled off. And that's just going to look so cool. It's going to look like, almost going to look like this thing never got painted, because there's literally no overspray. This is where it peeled through. There's a little hole here where it peeled through. So I think that's cool. And I haven't pulled this up, but I will, and I'll show it to you right now. This is the sticker that goes on the swing arm. Now, you can get these stickers, but I just thought it would be cool to leave the old ones on. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing right there. That is so nice. So we are painted. Now I'm going to do a little color sanding. I'm going to get rid of that that run over there, and then we're going to move on. So I will show you what the sticker looks like underneath on this swing arm. There's the sticker. You can see how I painted that paint. The new paint runs right up in there, right up in there, right up in there. I did that on purpose, and I think that just looks beautiful. Got everything taped off and everything sanded, and I worked over the edges of these because it went down a couple times and it scuffed the edges up. So got that. Now the next thing to do is get them black. I've got the other fork leg down drying. It's being painted with a whole bunch of other stuff that I showed you, the front triple tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this fork back together, and we have all the new Honda parts here, the seals, dust seals. The first thing is I've got to put this down in the bottom here. And we're going to get it centered. It's got a slot. You can see this angle right there, and that goes, I believe, somewhat like that. I'm going to put the screw in the bottom here, the sealing washer, and I'm going to put a little bit of Yama Bond on it. And I'm just going to put it right here. And not a lot. Just a little. Not much at all there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is tighten this, and hopefully not put finger marks in the fork legs. They are dry. This has been about a week, and we'll be fine there. I'm going to give this a little tap, a love tap, with the impact here. And that's just so that I know that it's going to seal. Nothing big, just a little tap. After looking down in the hole here, there was a area on this piece that we're putting in that was kind of shaved off, and now I figured out what it's for. It has to be orientated so that this hole doesn't get plugged. I had it in there and I looked down the hole and I'm going, oh, that's what it is, because it didn't sit in there. I thought it would be orientated so that when you started screwing the screw in, that it had like a flat spot in the bottom here that would keep that from spinning so you could really tighten it up, but it isn't. It's to allow you to drain the fork oil, so just be mindful of that. There's a little area that's kind of shaved off of this piece. So I've got that in there. So it's a good time to apply a little bit of seal grease on the seal here. And not a lot, but I'm going to put a little bit on the rubber. It just kind of helps it seat, which we shouldn't have any problem with because they came out. So fork seal 101 is, you can see the little spring, the kind of steel shiny spring. That'll always go on the oil side, so whatever side's holding the oil, this you can just see is solid. And so you just know that that's the part that goes down into the fork leg, and then the tubes will run up through that. All right, so as I remember, and I went back through my videos to see, the spring has got some tighter coils here, and as I pulled it out, those tight coils went down. They were on the bottom here, so let's just, you can see there's a kind of a perch here. That's the part where we screwed the screw in, and this rests on that. Your fork tube is down over it, and there you are. So now we're going to put on the seal with the right side facing where we need it to go. Try to be as careful as you can. Ride that down. And now I've got my fork seal driver, and we'll take a little one-size-fits-all adapter here. Let's see if I can get this to go in. Yeah. see that it's down in there, but it's not deep enough, so we'll just keep sliding on it. It'll go in. I really had to hammer to get that seal in, and these are probably just a hair too big. I mean, it worked, but I found another piece of metal that would go all the way around here, and I beat on the top of it. So anyhow, but I've got it in, and the instructions also say that basically you're supposed to, I just want you to get the right instructions here. I didn't do it, but you're supposed to disassemble this whole piece here. Take these little clips out, take both of these shims off, keep them indexed like they need to go right back on the same way. And then you put your seal on from this side instead of on the top. But you know what? You're probably fine putting it on from the top. It would help to put some saran wrap over the top of this and lube it up good, and then it should be absolutely no problem. But just so you know, the manual says to pull these and put the seal in from the bottom. But we've got it on and we've got it in, so we've got to put the thick washer on here, and the sharp edge, there's like a rounded, kind of a nice machine rounded end, and then a sharp edge. The sharp edge faces up basically, so it doesn't want to just kind of slide out of there. And I've already had this in, so it goes in real easy now. And there it is. Fork seals in. Now the dust cover. And there it is. There's our fork leg. Now I've got a brand new sealing washer. I'll put this in and do the other side, and then we can start putting the triple tree together on that nice painted frame. Here's the triple tree, and I'm happy with that. And I'm also happy with the top of the triple tree and a fork leg. Looks fine to me. I'm not happy with these. I didn't prep these good enough. And these are really in your eye, so I'm going to have to take these down to metal and really do some work on those. Since the video is getting really long, I've got to break right here. This looks like a great place to break for now and start a new segment now that we were all painted. So the new segment will go into the front forks, all the bearings, and just basically the assembly now. So I know Joe in Shingletown, buddy, my thoughts are with you. I know you've had a hard time health-wise, so just hang in there, and hopefully you get a chance to see this and know that we're thinking of you here. So until the next time, I will see you on the next video.